good. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Betting Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And it's a massive weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. Over here in Ireland, we have Cage Warriors this weekend. There's a UFC show, a pretty good UFC show. There's a very good Bellator show. There's a very good PFL show as well. So there's lots of shows to be betting on this weekend. Lots of great stuff. I actually have a bet from each of those big shows this weekend, so we have something for everyone this weekend. It's absolutely great, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of it. Dreading it a little bit as well, because we haven't much of the weekend for anything else. Although in this part of the world there isn't much sport going on. There's no soccer. I don't think there's no hurling this weekend either. So yeah, I have a free weekend just to watch MMA, so it should be fun. And I think Friday night and Saturday are when the big cards are on, so we'll have lots to do and lots to sink our teeth into this weekend. As I said last weekend, I probably could have done 2 betting shows, but I will run through other bets maybe towards the end, and I'll go through all the cards and look at the prices and see what I think might have a bit of value there as well. But I have my 5 bets for this week, and I'm sticking to them, and we'll see how they go. Last week, another kind of iffy week. I think I got one fight fell out, but then I think I got 2 of the other ones, so not too bad, I suppose, but I'm looking for a better week this week. I went all plus bets last week and going all plus bets this week as well, and look, hopefully we can make a bit of money out of it and go into next week ups. But as I always say, please bet responsibly. Don't bet more than you can. This show is for fun, bit of crack. Maybe I can give you a little bit of insight into 1 or 2 things that I think might change the fight, and you can take that, put it with your knowledge, and see what you want to bet on. So we'll go from that with that proviso, and I'll give you my 5 bets for the week. First of all, I'm going for Ryoji Kudo over on PFL. I really like this guy. I think he's a very, very good fighter. He fought Brendan Loughnane in his last fight. Was very, very close to beating him. Went to a no contest in the 3rd round. Brendan will probably tell you himself, I think he got a little bit lucky in that one, in the fact that he had quite obviously lost the 1st round. It was a close 2nd round that he won, and in the 3rd round finished early. So, he kind of got lucky. He was just ahead in that couple of minutes that happened in the 3rd round. If it had gone on another minute, Kudo could have gone on and won that fight. And after the big knockdown in the 1st round, I don't think many people would have said he didn't deserve it. So he's fighting Alejandro Flores this weekend, and he is plus 160 to win that fight. And I have a full preview of this card out in on Sherdog as well. So if you haven't listened to that, please do. But watching these 2 lads fight, I favour Kudo in a big way. I was surprised he is the underdog. If you look at Flores in his last fight, I wasn't that impressed by him, honestly. He threw a few front leg stomps, a couple of flying knees. He stretches in with strikes, and he is pretty varied, which I think is a very important thing in mixed martial arts. But do you know what? I think he's a good style for Kudo. Like a guy who stretches in with wild strikes against a guy who's a very fast, powerful counter fighter. I'm not... Look, this to me, and I might be 100% wrong, Flores might go in and win here, but people, I think, who've been watching MMA for a long time and betting on MMA for a long time, we remember, and it doesn't happen that much anymore, but we remember those old school fights, and Joe Rogan always talks about it, where there is this guy, right, that maybe Anderson Silva might be a good example. He comes in and he fights Chris Lieben, and I think, was Chris Lieben favourite for that? Maybe I'm wrong now, but let's go with it if he was. We've had other fights like that. McGregor coming in against Brimage, he was like 4-1 via not to get a knockout or something like that. Crazy odds, just because people really didn't know him as well. Those odds used to happen all the time in mixed martial arts, and let's say Anderson Silva was an underdog to beat Chris Lieben, and anyone who knows Anderson Silva, even at that time, before he became the GOAT, knew he was probably going to style on Chris Lieben, honestly. This to me feels like one of those matchups. Now, I'll say it again. I could be wrong. Don't go and bet the house on this. I'm not by any means saying that Kudo is Anderson Silva, but I think he's a very good fighter, and I really, really like him. Now, Flores' last fight against Bellator, I think it was... He didn't perform well, Ryoji didn't perform well, but it was a weird matchup. Ryoji's like this guy who they kept talking about as a wrestler, but he didn't do any wrestling. I felt like Torres was kind of waiting for it. Now, Kudo can wrestle as well, and he's good kind of counter takedowns. His size might be the one issue he has here, but the way Flores stretches in and leaves himself so open for counters, I think Kudo, honestly, it looks like one of those ones where Kudo's going to eat him up all day with those strikes. Now, maybe Flores will show something else. Maybe he can do something different, and maybe he'll just win the fight from the outside, won't, stretch in as he has done in recent fights, and just pick Kudo apart. Now, maybe that will happen, and he will use his size to do that, but I don't know. I don't think that will happen, honestly. I think Kudo will catch him with a big shot. I think he'll probably knock him down early and maybe even knock him out. So yeah, that's my first bet. Plus 160, Ryoji Kudo to win over in the PFL. I think it might be the second fight on the PFL card, maybe even the first. So you'll be able to see that one early on Friday night, I believe it is. Right. The second fight I'm going for is from Bellator, and this one is more of a feel. Then that one was purely like, watch the two of them, saw maybe a technical flaw in one guy, saw what one guy's good at and picked it. This is purely on feel. I'm going for Pam Sorenson at plus 220 to beat Zingano. And my feeling here is that Zingano isn't what Zingano used to be, if you want to put it that way. I just feel like she hasn't fought that much over the last while. She's had terrible injuries, and then she's out for another year before this fight. In that last fight, she fought someone who was like not on that level or not even close to that level. Now, if this fight happened 5 years ago, whatever it was, I think Zingano would have been a massive favourite, and rightly so, and I would have been picking her and everything. But it's not happening 5 years ago. It's happening now, and all those injuries have been there, and all this has happened. I was talking on the preview show this week, and I was kind of saying Bellator maybe should have tried to get Zingano into a title shot without having to do this fight, because they're kind of so short to people. Now, if she goes and she wins it, you can forget that. That's all well and good. But if she goes in here and she doesn't win it, that's a big problem, because you have a big name person who's probably on pretty good money, and you're taking another name for Cyborg to fight away, which in Bellator is very, very tough because they don't have that many. Sinead Kavanagh won one fight and she was straight back in there. Obviously, she got injured and everything else like that, and someone else took the place. But that's this kind of situation you have. Leah McCourt's fighting in a few weeks. She's just lost to Sinead Kavanagh. If she wins, she could very well be the next one. And if Cyborg stays and if she carries on with Bellator, which I think most people think that she will. But having watched Sorenson back again, we all know what she is. She's a good, strong, go-forward fighter. She gets you in the clinch. She's very good there. She's a good all-around fighter without being great, like top level. And Zingano at one time was, a top-level fighter. She was probably the third or fourth best in the world at one stage. But my feel, and I'll say again, it is purely a feel thing. Having looked at her last fight as well, I didn't think she looked great against someone far inferior to her perceived level, even though she won. And I think if Sorenson was in that place a year ago, I think she would have put up a great fight. And now we're a year on with another year out of the cage after all the time she's already been out of the cage. I think Sorenson will come forward. Might be like a little bit too quick for the Zingano of today. I think that's a ridiculous thing to say a few years ago, but for the Zingano of today, I think it could be an issue. I think she could land a lot of strikes, put her under a lot of pressure, put her under the sort of pressure you only feel in a fight. Something kind of the sort of pressure you can't really prepare for. And I think she could win. And the price has set me apart more than anything else. Plus 220. I just think that's ridiculous. Like, that's a price of Pam Sorenson fighting Alpha Zingano from 2017 or whatever it was. That is not a 2022 price. That really, really isn't. I'll say it again, Zingano could go out and win the fight. Maybe that year out revitalised her. Maybe she cleared up all the injuries. Maybe she looks great. I just feel like I think we'd be foolish to expect that. I really do. Now, has she dropped enough of a level, to where she's below Pam Sorenson? That is a big question as well, and maybe not. Maybe she can still win the fight like she won the last one. But Sorenson's a good fighter. I think she's a good fighter, and she will put it up to you. And what she is she's a fighter who won't lose easily, if you want to put it that way, to someone like Zingano. Maybe not to Cyborg or maybe to Amanda Nunes or something like that, but to that sort of level, if she fought either like a Sinead Kavanagh or even, Leah McCourt or someone around that level, she might lose some, but she won't lose easily. And I think I would put Zingano there. So that was my second bet, Pam Sorenson, plus 220. So we've gone PFL, Bellator, I have 2 bets for the UFC, so let's go for Cage Warriors first before we go to those UFC bets. And I'm going for Rhys McKee, who is plus 170 right now. That price has kind of been changing over the last couple of days, but he's plus 170 as I speak right now to beat Justin Burlinson in the main event of Cage Warriors Belfast, which goes down this Saturday night. People probably, if you're in America, you'll probably know Rhys McKee from, he came in and fought Chimaev, and obviously we know Chimaev did to him what he does to everyone, and then he fought Alex Morono in that fight, which Morono won the decision on. A couple of close rounds in there. I think a lot of people, obviously, we're a little bit biased this side of the world, but we thought Rhys probably should have got another shot, and he didn't, but he came back to Cage Warriors, won one big fight, and now he's into a title fight for the vacant title against Justin Burlinson. Burlinson, another guy who went to Contender Series, lost there, came back to Cage Warriors, won one fight, and now he's back in this position as well. And it's perfect matchmaking, and I think most people call for it. And if you're listening to this, and if you're in the UK and Irish scene, you know what these guys are like. But if you're on the other scene, I still think these 2 guys are like top level prospects coming through. Like, I think both of them maybe got to, for Rhys, the UFC, and for Burlinson, the Contender Series, a little bit too early, especially Rhys. I think, if Rhys had got to the Contender Series at that time, maybe it would be okay, but going in there straight against Chimaev in short notice, when Rhys was supposed to fight for the Cage Warriors title before that, well, after that fight, but before he got that fight, if you get me, if he'd fought for the Cage Warriors title, maybe had a defense and maybe gone to the UFC and it was a year down the line, he probably would have been more ready for not Chimaev, but for Morono and for others. And I think he's taken that step back, had that fight, and now is having another fight. And maybe, he'll have to have a defense or 1 or 2 defenses and then get back to the UFC. And I think that's the path for Rhys McKee at this stage of his career. And I think it's a good path. He's a very, very good fighter. And for Burlinson, the same. If he wins this, he'll probably maybe have 1 defense, and then I'm sure the UFC will be happy to have him back again, or maybe a Dana White Contender Series shot again or something like that. But he is, the both of these guys, I think no matter what happens, I think both of them will end up back in the UFC. Whoever loses, the winner will go to the UFC. The other guy will probably end up fighting for the vacant title again, in a year's time when the other lad has gone to the UFC. So 2 very similar fighters. 2 lads who like to go forward and land lots of shots and throw lots of different shots. I think Rhys a little bit more varied than Burlinson. Burlinson, an almighty finisher when he gets there, really, really good. Both lads have been known to take a shot as well. I think Burlinson, in his last fight against Sabinski, took a lot of shots and was almost finished in that fight against the guy who is very good. He's one of these guys who's been fighting on the Russian scene, and he has like 35 fights, and you could see Indian, the matchmaker, had to put him into a tough fight, and absolutely did. And say for Rhys, he went in there against Alexei Mantakivi, if memory serves me correct, took a few shots as well, but ended up winning that fight. And the reason I'm going for Rhys here is watching that Burlinson fight back. I feel like if he gets into that position against Rhys, it's going to be very, very tough for him to kind of come out of it. Rhys is a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Rhys hits so hard as well. Burlinson hits hard as well. Like if either of these lads connected their best shot, the other lad has probably gone out, and let's be realistic about that. But I think Rhys does hit harder, and I think the variation in these shots early is something that is very hard to deal with if you're not, say, like someone like Morono, who's very, very experienced. Burlinson is still only, 7-8 fights into his career, and that is not a lot of fights to deal with something coming at you like that. And he showed in his last fight that it was tough. Maybe that has improved him, and maybe he went into training and thought, okay, I'm a bit of a front runner, let's work on that, and has improved since. And I think Rhys McKee, maybe you could argue that the same thing was maybe an issue with him, but he's had a few setbacks now, and you'd hope that they would come out of it on his side. But yeah, I like McKee in this fight. I really do. I think Rhys McKee, who is calm and calculated in a fight, is really good. Like, a lot of people, if you haven't watched all of Rhys McKee's fights, or a good selection of them anyway, you mightn't understand how good of a fighter he actually is. Like, there's a few fights, they're a good few years ago now, but he had a loss at one stage and he came back, and I remember his comeback fight after that loss. he looked just so smooth. And you don't often see fighters looking as smooth at the start of a fight in the cage as they would in training, or as they would hitting mitts or whatever they would. And Rhys McKee, he can come out and be like that at times. Sometimes, I know he isn't always like that. And, when you're fighting Chimaev, you're not going to be smooth. But if he can come out and be smooth like that against Burlinson, I think Burlinson eats enough shots for Rhys McKee to put him in trouble and to finish him. And I think that smoothness, but also it's a calm. He's a very calm fighter when he is calm. When he's not calm, he's not calm. But if he can find that smoothness, if he can find that calm, I think he'll land enough shots here to finish Burlinson. Also, we must not forget it as well, the Irish crowds and the Northern Irish crowds, they're manic and they're always unbelievable. And it's a relatively even enough matchup. Rhys McKee plus 170 in front of his home crowd. In front of his home crowd against an English lad. I don't know about that now. I think that will be a massive help for Rhys McKee having all those behind him. Now, maybe if it doesn't make him smooth, if it doesn't make him calm, maybe it won't be a massive help. So you can judge that one for yourself. But I just feel like Irish fighters are usually brought up by those crowds, and I think Rhys McKee will. And a plus 170, I think that's a good bet in a relatively even fight. I would have been sure, and I was talking to another few people about it as well, I would have been sure that Rhys would have been favourite coming in here, and maybe we could have been looking at Burlinson being a good bet if he was plus 170, but I think Rhys at 170 is great money there. I really like that. Right, let's talk about the two UFC bets. First bet from the UFC, I am going for Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I'm going for him to win by decision at plus 230. Now, another bet that'll probably, fluctuate with the more money that comes in for it. But he's fighting Neil Magny here on Saturday night, and it is a fight that he's a big favourite on minus 390, and I wouldn't be backing him at that price because Neil Magny isn't that easily bet. He really isn't, and Rakhmonov hasn't met fantastic combination yet. There's no doubt in his quality though. This guy is really, really good. He can do it all. He can punch, he can wrestle. And I think he will beat Magny. Sorry, I'm getting Maness and Neil Magny mixed up here. I think he will beat him. And the reason I'm going for the fight to end by decision is I think Magny. Look, Magny is one of these guys, and I said it there about Rhys McKee. At times he can fight this way, and other times he can fight that way. He is a guy sometimes that doesn't turn up. Right, and he's a guy that you expect to go into a fight every time and be this hard-nosed, hard-out who is, maybe even going to win as an underdog in a fight, right? And sometimes he just isn't that against good guys. And this is another kind of feeling, but I feel like he won't do that this time. I think he's going to come out, look at Rakhmonov as the guy who's trying to take his spot, look at the next guy coming through, like the next Chimaev, and say, right, this is the guy who everyone thinks is the guy, but I'm going to prove he's not. And I think he's going to come out and he's going to perform very well. I think he's going to not give up for that whole fight. I think he's going to believe in himself, and I think that'll get him a losing decision spot, to be honest. I still don't think he'll win. I don't think that'll get him a win, but I do think it'll make the fight go along. I think Rakhmonov likes to bring the fight to the clinch a lot of the time, right, after he strikes. And I think Magny, the fact he's so long, I think Rakhmonov will be kind of leaning in. And when that does happen, the fight will go to a clinch. And I could see long clinches here. I could see 2 and 3 minutes of this fight going against the clinch. I could see Rakhmonov maybe taking him down, seeing that there's 90 seconds left on the clock, maybe not trying to do too much and kind of riding it out on top when he's ahead in the rest of the round. That's the sort of fight I see here. I don't see like and maybe the big takedowns won't happen, and maybe the takedowns even like that I suggested there won't happen, but I also don't think it'll be like a 15-minute kickboxing match, purely kickboxing. I just think that reach and that length of Magny it almost realizes clinches. It's almost impossible not to get clinches when you're fighting against Neil Magny, and that's why you see him so often land those little knees and those nasty little knees and good knees from the break and nice elbows and things like that. He's one of those sort of fighters, and that's why I think this fight will go long. As my phone rings, my apologies. That's why I think this fight will go long, and I think it'll be the sort of fight that I think it'll be the sort of fight that Magny does better in than maybe we're giving him credit for coming into it, and gets to a decision, gets to the end. But at the end of the day, I think that power of Rakhmonov, I think the wrestling of Rakhmonov, the strength of Rakhmonov, and the all-around game of Rakhmonov will get him the decision here. So plus 230 Rakhmonov to win via decision. Right. My flyer of this week, and this is a pure flyer this time, right? This flyer bet wasn't designed as a bet that's like, oh, it's going to win every week. This is a bet that's going to win, once every 2 months. And the bet I'm going for today is based on watching this guy fight over the last 3 or 4 weeks, because there's a couple of guys who he has fought who've been fighting over the last few weeks. And I watch this guy and I'm like, this guy is good. And this guy is a guy who doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. And that guy is Maness. And he's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, he's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov, and Umar Nurmagomedov is brilliant. But at plus 650, I think that line is wrong. I think now, don't get me wrong, he might not win. But I think this line should be closer to like plus 300 or something like that, because he's very good. He beat Tony Gravely. And we saw a couple of weeks ago, Tony Gravely's knockout power, but he's also a really, really good wrestler. And he was strong against Tony Gravely and was able to, win in some of those wrestling exchanges and things like that. If he can do that against Gravely, can he do it against Umar Nurmagomedov? No. Can he do it for the whole fight? Probably not. But can he do it at the price of plus 650? Can he do it then? I think maybe like that's the sort of fight. Even if you have like 4 or 5 guys who you think are definitely going to win, make an ACA, throw him in. It could be a 20-1 ACA, put a couple of quid on it, and if he wins, you're gone to the moon. But it's one of those ones. I just think it's the ultimate flyer. It's that he might win. I think he's a way worse of a price than he should be. I think plus 650 is absolutely crazy. Now, if you were to ask me straight up who I think will win if they're about even money, I would 100% say Umar Nurmagomedov. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying at all. But this guy is a very good fighter, a tough guy, a really, really tough guy, and if he can stop the takedowns of Umar Nurmagomedov, maybe even get on top himself, push him against the cage, if he shows he's a little bit stronger there, which may sound, ridiculous, but I just haven't seen some of his fights recently. This guy is strong and very good in all areas, and he's a real test for Nurmagomedov. And we've seen some guys tested, and some guys that we thought were going to run through guys who were no-name guys. This guy might be a no-name guy, but he's a good fighter and a fighter who shouldn't be that price. And my flyer of the week is Maness at plus 650. So that's it. Those are my 5 bets for the week. Let's get into some of the prices for the other fights. And there's so many of them, I'll have to run through them this week. So we'll start with Bellator. Gegard Mousasi, he's a minus 260 favourite. Over Johnny Eblen plus 220. I think that's just about right, honestly. Eblen, the last fight against Vanderford for Mousasi, and obviously I've done the preview of this, so I won't go into these fights too much, but he entered on and people had a few questions. It was on here in Ireland, so I was at it, and I even asked him about it, the wrestler question and all that, and we didn't really get that answered because Vanderford kind of got finished very quickly, and he also looked like he got a stinger in that fight, and we didn't really see much wrestling. Mousasi didn't have to deal with it, and it feels like that question has been answered coming out of that fight, but it really hasn't. So the exact same question I think coming again here against Johnny Eblen, and Gegard at this stage of his career, that young, tough American wrestler, is he going to be able to deal with it? We'll find out, but I would go with Mousasi there. I think this is another crazy line, lads. Danny Sabatello, Alejandro Higo, plus 410 for Higo. Sabatello, minus 520. Look, I'd probably go for Sabatello, but I think that's a crazy line if he can't wrestle Higo down. Like Higo's very good on the ground as well. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, if I'm not mistaken, and there's loads of submissions and things, so... Yeah, that'd be another flyer of mine there. Try the two of them together. You probably get 30-40-1 or something, would you? That'd be that's plenty of money to make back off a bit of a double there. Enrique Barzola, one of my favorite fighters against Magomedov. Barzola is the underdog, plus 135, minus 155. Fight of the weekend. it's right up there. That's a great fight, and I think that line is just about right, but I would not rule out Barzola whatsoever in that fight. Brendan Ward is a favourite there as well, minus 260, and Tolly Tukov is a big favourite, minus 600. Alexander Shibley, who's fighting Brent Primus, he is the favourite at minus 230. Did I just say Brendan Ward and Tukov are underdogs? No, they're favourites. Minus 260 for Ward, minus 600 for Tukov. Shabley the favourite, minus 230, plus 195 for Primus. An interesting fight. Like, Primus is one of these guys who, he's just a weird fighter. He does everything different, and you know, you can't prepare for him very well at all. But yeah, it's an interesting fight. You know what? At almost 2-1, I'd nearly go for Primus in that one. Zingano then minus 295. Pam Sorenson plus she's 245 here now. I'm just looking at it, but she's plus 220 in other places. So yeah, she's around that price. So you maybe shop around, you can get her at a better price. Look at some of the few of the other bets. Abu Massi's a favourite against Maicon at minus 180 to plus 155. Cody Law, the big prospect coming through, is minus 720. As is Lucas Brennan at minus 520. Another one of the big prospects coming through. So you can check out all the rest of the bets there as well. But those are kind of the main ones. PFL. Really love the PFL card this weekend. Anti-Jeja minus 700 against Shelton Graves. Is that fight being changed? I think there's a few injuries and a few pullouts and a few different things happening here. Brendan Loughnane as well. I'm actually just seeing here, it looks like he's fighting Ago Husic. I saw that his opponent pulled out, Boston Salmon, but there's a lot of different changes here and a lot of different fights going on, so not exactly sure what's happening with the PFL, but it looks like Goslov's fighting Maurice Green now, is that correct? Minus 520. So yeah, there's a lot of mad things going on in the PFL with a lot of changes and stuff like that, but sure, that happens on fight week, I suppose. Bruno Capoloza anyway, in the main event, minus 600 plus 450. That's a sure thing. That plus 600 or that minus 600 is a good price there, I think, on him. Pettis against Ray, very close fight, good fight as well. Minus 180 for Pettis, plus 155 for Stevie Ray. I think Stevie Ray can do it. Whether he will now or not, I don't know, but I think he could. Chris Wade minus 450, Kyle Bashnak plus 380. I think that's about right as well. Clidson Abreu plus 330. Hinan Fahea minus 410. I think there'll probably be a big knockout there. Let's see the price of the knockout for Fahea. That is minus 175. A little bit low, but I like that. And then my guy Ryoji Kudo as well, plus 145, plus 160 even here. For Flores is minus 185. Right, let's run through some of the bets in the UFC. I've kind of avoided this Saryukin Gamrot fight. I would go for Gamrot at plus 245 from a betting point of view, and I would pick Gamrot straight up as well, I think. I'm a big fan of Gamrot. I think he's very good. Saryukin is obviously very good as well. At minus 295, though, I think that's too much. I think that price is way too much. Not to say he won't win, but I just think that price is a little bit off. Magny against Rakhmonov. Magny plus 320, Rakhmonov minus 390. Obviously, we talked about that one already. We have Bordeaux minus 115, Parisian minus 105, Nurmagomedov minus 900 and plus 625 now for my guy Maness, who obviously I gave the bet for, plus 625 plus 650 and other places plus 600. So the price is kind of coming in there a little bit. Let's look at the price for Nurmagomedov to win by decision, because that could be an interesting one as well. Nurmagomedov wins by decision. Let me just look at it here. Where is it? It's not there, it doesn't look like. Oh no, it is here. Plus 175. You know, what's that thing called where you bet on one side and bet on the other side? Do that with that one. Bet on Nurmagomedov to win by decision, and bet on Maness to win. Maybe Maness by decision might be a bad bet either. You know. Well, one of them will probably happen. Plus 1,000 or plus 1,800 here in some places for Maness to win by decision. So lash on that, lads. Lovely fight as well. Rodolfo Vieira is the underdog. Plus 115 against Chris Curtis. Minus 135. Curtis is very good, but I don't know. I think he might be a little bit overpriced there. I think Vieira as the underdog might be a pretty good bet there. Ichukwi against Ulberg, but even minus 110. Rulan Paiva plus 120, minus 140 from Morozov, and there's a few other busts there as well. Brian Keller's on the card. He's plus 140, even underdog minus 165 for Batista. JP buys against Cody Durden. Durden's the underdog there at plus 100. I like that. I think I'd probably go for that. There's an Aries card as well this weekend. Hinan Barao is fighting William Gomis, and if you don't know William Gomis, this guy is brilliant. Gomis is minus 400. I would definitely be backing him there, but it's a very, very good card. Luis Enrique de Silva is on that card as well. He's a minus 185 favourite over Slim Trabelsi. Kirill Karadnikov is on the card. There's loads of very good cards. They're putting on some great cards. Damien Lapalus, who people would know, he's fighting Admin Abu. He's actually the underdog in that as well. Karl Amasu is on the card. So a very good card there for Aries. And then Cage Warriors. Burlinson is the favourite in the main event over Rhys McKee, who is plus 170. Burlinson minus 210, minus 200 in some places as well. Caelan Loughran, he is the favourite at minus 160. Caelan Loughran, it's hard to know how good Caelan is. He came into the Cage Warriors, had a very good performance, very impressed with it. Before that, he was kind of fighting cans, to put it nicely. So he still has a lot to prove, but from what I've seen so far, looks like a very, very good fighter. And, you know, we could come out of this fighting, and that price was very low. So that was the guy I'd probably back as well. James Sheehan, no relation. He's minus 350. He's fighting Martin Cause, who's plus 260. James Sheehan is a very good fighter. You know, some very tough fights to start off his career. Obviously, Foddy and Gary went to decision when him, ended up losing that. But he's like working his way back now. I think he's on a 4-fight win streak, if I'm not mistaken. And I expect him to win this one again. And this is a guy in the future you could be looking at, you know, fighting maybe for that welterweight title not too far down the line. Harry Hardwick, his brother's fighting for lightweight title in a couple of weeks. He's a favourite there, minus 200 against Federico Pasquale, plus 165. Very fun fight. Matthew Elliott against Ryan Shelley. Shelley from Dublin is minus 275, and Elliott from up the north, fighting in front of his home crowd, is plus 220. Adam Darby from Team Rhino, if I'm not mistaken, minus 300, plus 240 for Dorian there. Glenn Irvine, who's been around for a long, long time, he's an underdog there, plus 200 against Michael Tumchu, who's minus 270. And then Adam Shelley, the brother of Ryan Shelley, who is really, really good. I'm a big fan of both of those Shelley brothers, but Adam is a little bit ahead. He's had a lot of fights. He is, I always mix them up. Right, I don't know. Forget about it. One of them is 4-0, one of them is like 2-1, I think, but they're both very good. Minus 120, plus 100 there, and that it looks like Martin Magnoni's in to fight Scott Malone here. Malone was supposed to fight Andy Young on his comeback fight, but that fight didn't end up happening because I think there was an injury to Young. But Malone is the plus 175 underdog there. So if you get through all of those fights, if you get through all of those bets, lads, you'll be doing well. I will recap my bets before I go here. So I'm going for Ryoji Kudo, plus 160, Pam Sorenson, plus 220, Rhys McKee, plus 170, Rakhmonov to win by decision at plus 230. And my flyer of the week is Nate Maness at plus 650 against Umar Nurmagomedov. Right, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Give it a thumbs up. Tell me what you're betting on in the comment section below, and we'll see you at the end of the week who's right, who's wrong, who won money, who lost money, and we'll go at it again next week. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.